Thompson, our commissioner, coming.
Sounds like more people talking, right?
There he is.
All right.
Here's Peter.
Welcome to the City of Eureka Springs BOZA and Planning Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 14th. 6 o'clock, we are in the auditorium. Can we do a roll call, Tom?
Yes, Peter Graham,
Here.
Susan Harmon,
Here.
Susan Greening,
Here.
Ann Salee,
Here.
Fergie Stewart,
Here.
and I'm President Tom Buford.
All right, so we've got a quorum. Let's do Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into public comment. Linda, you want to? This is, well, we usually, it depends on what we're doing. We do have public comments on each one of them, but if it's something not related to either one of those two, do you want to be under a specific? Okay, so you want to stay on the Planning Commission public comments? Okay. Steph, do you have anything? Do you want to do it just during regular open public comments, or do you want to be on a specific? Okay, do you want to come up now and just do, okay.
Hi, everybody. So Steph Gordon Glassford, 23 Hill Street. I just want to bring up, we've got all these trees being cut, and there's a couple of issues we see is that, like we had a big clear cut down on Mountain Street, and I think 7 trees were cut down. The problem is the tree service people, first off, we don't really know why they got cut. They said they were diseased or lightning struck or dead, but we really only saw one that needed it. But whatever, it's clear cut, it's done. But the stumps have been left 3 feet above the ground. They're not being cut flush. And this is happening all over town, and it just looks really cheap and tacky and hillbilly to me. I've got a big 150-year-old oak tree. Now, it was dead. It needed to be cut down, but they left 15 feet of it. And it's like, it just makes my neighborhood look terrible. So, and I've seen this happen back behind the funnel cake shop. They left a 4-foot stump. They just left a 5-foot section of the trunk there. I just wish that we could clean this up, do some flush cuts, make things look neat and nice. So, yeah. Just wanted to bring that up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't remember, that wasn't in the ordinance, right? Was it? I don't think it was.
Some kind of make copies out of them, I don't know.
Yeah, to look at that again. Okay, so Board of Zoning and Adjustment, we actually don't have anything tonight, so we're going to move into our Planning Commission meeting. Approval of the agenda. So we have 2 items that are on there right now. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to add? All right,
Yes.
Ann?
At the last agenda setting, at the last meeting, I asked to have the historic, the Spring Street parking ordinance put on there, so I'd like to add that.
Okay, do you want to put that under new business or old? Or just commission business?
I put it under new business.
Okay, so number 3, we're going to say, we're going to have a discussion about Spring Street parking district.
That's fine.
Okay. Anybody else need anything added at this point? Okay, so under commission business, we have a couple things here. And I know that we are working right now without Kyle, so I do not have a copy of the minutes from the October 10th meeting. So we're going to need to strike that because we don't have it to approve. The discussion number 2, which was the workshop application, I think we're going to hold off on that. FAR, we'll hold off on that. Legally non-conforming, so 1, 2, 3, 4. The mayor is not here for number 5. So I think we're just going to take all of those off tonight until we can kind of regroup. we'll do our agenda setting, but those, we'll have the 3 items under new business, and the only item under commission business at this point will be the agenda setting. So can I get a motion and a second to approve the
I make a
amended?
motion that we approve the amended agenda as written.
Second.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to approve the amended list here. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so under Planning Commission, we have public comments. Linda, do you want to come up during this time?
Remember, I talk slow. I didn't know that parking was going to be added tonight, so I made my notes first. Not being able to see in the future, I didn't know it was going to be on here. This Planning Commission still has a responsibility about the residential parking plan. As of today, the residential parking ordinances are not being enforced. The City of Eureka Springs operates under a mayor-council form of government. Under this system, the City Council is the legislative and policy-making body of city government. The Eureka City Council sets the city's policies by passing ordinances and resolutions. The Planning Commission is an advisory body appointed by the City Council. Each member has 1 vote. No member on this commission has the power to be making decisions on their own. The majority of the chairperson's responsibilities is the conduct and the control of each meeting. The chair does not have the power of the commission to be making planning decisions on their own without input of the commission as a whole. Again, each member has 1 vote. All members of city planning are equal, and the director of planning and development is an employee of the city, doesn't have a vote on planning commission business, nor does the position of director of planning have any executive decision powers over this commission. What is an ordinance? An ordinance is a local law created by local government and passed by the city council and is to be enforced. When an ordinance becomes law, when it's passed, it is a law in its entirety, and not one part of that ordinance can be ignored, and special consideration be given by a planning commissioner and employee to work around that ordinance. You can't do it. That ordinance is law and cannot be changed once the City Council passes it. The Planning Commission held many workshops and meetings gathering information for residential parking ordinances for Eureka Springs. After much work, the Planning Commission presented a residential parking plan to the mayor and the City Council, and the ordinance was written and passed by the City Council, becoming law. Ordinance number 2309 was an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Eureka Springs, Arkansas Municipal Code regarding bed and breakfast. It was passed in September 13th, 2021. Ordinance number 2332 is an ordinance to establish a Spring Street residential parking district. Was passed January the 23rd, 2023. These parking ordinances are law, and they cannot be changed, they cannot be added to any item or any shape, form, or fashion by the chair and the director of planning and development is illegal. They cannot be changed. These laws are to be enforced by the police department and respected by the Planning Commission. The most important thing about a police department is the responsibility to enforce the law. These are laws. They can't say, we're not going to enforce it, we're going to look the other way. So far, they have not been enforcing your ordinances. The police are built into communities around the world, and they are meant to serve 4 primary purposes: enforce the laws and ordinances, prevent crime, provide emergency response, and support services. Of course they do everything, but they are to enforce the law. The city passed 2 ordinances and the police looked the other way. They have got to start enforcing the ordinances. One planning commissioner recently resigned. Ethics is particularly important in public service. As a planning commissioner, you have been given significant authority, and you are expected to use that authority with integrity. You make decisions about what can and cannot be done in our community. If the Planning Commission is to do its job properly, address the challenges confronting most communities, public trust and confidence is vital. High ethical standards are required to secure and maintain public trust that is essential to the planning process for good government. One planning commissioner recently resigned. Do you wonder why? I think it was because of good ethics and integrity about what has happened, but that is my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so let's go on to, we have no unfinished business. Let's go on to new business. This is the application for 302 Village Circle, new construction of a stage. Do we have anyone here to represent that particular application? Okay, so we don't have anyone here. Let's just go ahead and postpone that, and what we'll do is find out what exactly is going on with that particular one.
Do we need to do
Jacob,
motion? Do we need to do a motion on that? To
just hold
motion?
on just a second. Jacob, do you have any information on that application? I know you've been out there talking to them. Can you come up to the mic? Yeah, this is for the stage that was out at Pine Mountain. There was an application that was sent to us from, on behalf of Paul Johnson. So did I miss something, or it's on our agenda?
Right, so I was missing documentation regarding structural supports that needed to be done. They provided that documentation to me.
Okay,
They still have to go through HDC. There's still a process that they're missing. I believe it's on the agenda for the next HDC meeting.
okay, so I know last time when we had them on our agenda, we postponed it because we didn't have all of the information, and there were some things going on city side for that particular structure.
But they didn't show up then either.
They didn't show up, but they didn't have, I think it's because they didn't have permits and different things like that. So,
Yes, and we got that portion taken care of.
okay, in the future, and maybe, I don't know when they're going to come and be in front of us, but in the future, are they not here because they know that you still need information, or is it because they didn't realize they were on our agenda? I know you can't answer that, but I guess what I'm asking is, are they under the assumption that you've said, hey, look, I don't have all the information, so therefore they're just thinking they don't have to come to these meetings?
I don't want to assume anything.
Okay.
My
Okay.
apologies.
All right, so you don't have what you need at this point.
So they have submitted to me in an email the
When did
information.
that happen?
Probably about a week ago, I got this documentation.
Okay,
And it was for finalizing the design plans for the structural supports of these stages, which is definitely something that was missing in the plans. But even more so, they missed applying through HTC and getting that approval, as well as the portion that Kyle was missing in the planning department,
Yeah, I know.
which they finally submitted to us. So
okay. I know we've got some things going on right now as far as staff and everything too, but, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and, does anyone want to make a motion in a second to go ahead and postpone this until,
Yeah, I make a motion that the application for 302 Village Circle, new construction of stage, be postponed until the next
I second
meeting.
it.
all right, so we've got a motion and a second just to go ahead and postpone this until we get more information. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so none opposed. Our second item was discussion of sidewalks
yes, ma'am.
and long-term rentals. So which one do you want to start with?
You choose, ma'am.
Okay, Tom, I know you are the one that presented or asked for a sidewalk discussion. We do have a workshop on the books.
Yes,
I think
ma'am.
it's the 30th
Yes,
at
ma'am.
4 o'clock to discuss with City Council sidewalks. So you want to?
I
Ask
don't
any
really know what
specific?
Jacob has to say about sidewalks.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I've been doing my research, so it's, obviously, there's sidewalk issues all over town. Identifying which are the most hazardous and which need to be prioritized, I mean, that could be debatable. But when you look at, how I look at it, is the most trafficked area by foot, okay, which is Spring Street. Okay, that's where you got a lot of tourist activity, everybody's on foot. Sidewalk repair there is absolutely a must. There's not only surface issues, but there's underside structural issues regarding the underside of the sidewalks as well. Cracks that are run quite a distance down the sidewalk, and they're caving in, as you all know, you walk on them. The limestone is also a major issue because it's a slippery surface. It's actually in our ordinance, it states that once it's repaired, it needs to be repolished. Repolished limestone on a grade like that is not a good idea considering the slip hazard that it offers.
It's very smooth in spots.
It is. It's
Yeah.
probably wonderful to lay on after you fall, but not very fun to slip on. It's a hazard. So I look at not only is it slippery, but there's tripping hazards, there's cracking and splitting and spalling from just years of water, and mainly because there's no property upkeep or maintenance done on these sidewalks. Now, if proper maintenance was performed regularly when these issues become a problem, we don't have these issues down the road. Now it's just become a huge issue. I've talked to 3 contractors, foundation sidewalk repair contractors, who've come to the city of Eureka, and we've walked the city to figure out ways on how to repair these sidewalks. With that being said, it's not just water creating these problems, it's the soil erosion that's separating it and moving these sidewalks around. So it's tackling how do we deal with the soil erosion that's damaging the sidewalks. And all of this ends up being a lot of money, right? I mean, it comes down to, can the homeowners afford these repairs? And if they can't, then not my goal, but my duty, according to our ordinance, is to enforce it by having the work done and putting a lien on the property. So that's one option. The other option is to focus on grants, getting grant money. And I think I've made some headway here. I've been working with an individual who will have everything together, I think, in 2 weeks. I just got off the phone with him today. And it's putting together packets for retaining walls and sidewalks. There's 5 agencies that he's reaching out to for grants: USDA, EPA, several others. But he's confident that we would get this money. Obviously, the city would have to take responsibility and ownership of the sidewalks in order to get the grant money. But if we do that and we focus just on a section of sidewalks throughout the city at a time, nothing major, but you just focus on a section at a time to address these issues.
Yeah, it's not going to happen tomorrow.
No, it's not. But
It's
I
a
mean,
plan.
focusing our attention on grants, I believe, is the best way to get this done. As well as retaining walls. I mean, they go hand in hand, you know.
So a couple, 3-4 years ago, we did have some money set aside on city council budget specifically for sidewalks. And the process that you just discussed, which was enforcement and liens. And then that was on there for maybe about 2 years, and then it was taken off the budget. So, and again, I'm not an expert on exactly the reasoning behind that, but that process was attempted, not but a couple of years ago. Would you agree? Wasn't it about 2 years
I think
ago?
it was $25,000 in the budget, I believe 2 years. And
Yeah.
since it wasn't enforced, they dropped it out of the budget. It was basically, I think, an enforcement problem at the time.
Yeah, and then the grants that you're looking at, that's not, I don't want to assume, but I'm speculating that it's not specifically for sidewalks. If you're going to the EPA and different things, it's because of what's happening to the ground, correct?
Yes, well, Some agencies are specifically for sidewalks, but other agencies help with the conditions that are causing the problem,
Okay,
and then allocating money to fix the sidewalk as well, so you have repair, and then you maintain it through proper enforcement and property maintenance, and you just maintain that with, I hate enforcement, compliance. You get people to comply, and you do it through encouraging and finding resources for them to do it, and encouraging property maintenance. That's
so based on the grant information that you've looked at, is it significant amounts, or is it, you know, I mean, what would be a plan? A plan would be, okay, over the course of 10 years, we're going to do X, right?
systematically breaking it down into identifying the worst areas, focusing your attention fully on those areas. The money that would be allocated for the grants are substantial because of multiple reasons. A, it's very expensive, obviously, but you got to consider if you're repairing a sidewalk for an issue, it could be because of a tree that is
Right.
tearing up a sidewalk, tearing up the roadway. So what do you need to do there? You need to remove that tree, the stump. You need to fix the ground underneath it. There's a lot more that goes into it. So it could be more costly in some areas than it would be in other areas. For a section on Mountain Street for a sidewalk repair that's approximately 12 to 15 feet in length, is $6,000. And that's a general idea of what I got from talking to 3 separate foundation contractors. And I've looked into mud jacking, polyurethane, into just taking the sidewalks completely out and reforming and rebuilding. So I've looked at it from all different angles. But then again, it all comes down to,
Cost.
yes, but it also comes down to
Who's doing it?
you trigger a major thing when you start doing the sidewalk repairs, and it's accessibility. Now, historic towns
Oh, yeah.
in history have been given a lot of leniency to not accommodate for ADA accessibility. That's going away. Handicap accessibility will be triggered if we do sidewalk repairs around town. Accessibility for wheelchairs or walkers, people who have trouble walking, that's something that gets triggered into that.
So basically, if the historic sidewalk is taken out and you replace it brand new in 2023 or 2024, whatever it is, you are then required to make that sidewalk ADA compliant.
A portion of that sidewalk, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And that would be for accessibility, height curb requirements,
Yeah,
and it makes sense. It's,
it's a brand new sidewalk.
it's an alteration, it's a modification to something, which
Yeah.
triggers, and that's what all building code does, it just triggers
Well-
other things to come into play. Yes, sir.
Well, some of the grade on Spring Street, I mean, you'd have to dig down. I mean, you'd be below the level of the street.
So feasibility is a big thing too, right? So if
yeah.
it's not feasible, if it's not physically feasible to do it, obviously there's considerations taken there.
Okay.
But in areas of Spring Street, there are places that people can easily access to if they had the ability to access it. So it's a tough argument for me to make to the Justice Department to say, look, we can't do it. Well, they would tend to disagree in a lot of cases around town. And now with the new construction or modifications or alterations to the buildings, I'm requiring ADA accessibility, which means ramps, bathrooms. These things are being applied on these buildings that we're doing, on the newer construction and even the older buildings. But that being said, the sidewalk renovation plan would require it. And I mean, it's just, we have a lot of neighborhoods up on the top loop and, throughout that could easily be modified for accessibility for wheelchairs.
Peter?
So I have a couple questions. Just to reiterate, were you stating that it's more likely for us to be sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Were you stating, I don't want to make an assumption, but were you stating that it looks like at this moment, when you look at the grants, it's more feasible for us to get the grants if the sidewalks were located on city property rather than private property?
It'd be difficult, yes, sir, because I mean, it'd be a logistical nightmare,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes,
To
totally.
handle that. City would have to take responsibility. I mean, but this would all be contingent to where if we get the grant, But, you know, with the expansion that is happening in Northwest Arkansas, talking to building officials at Fayetteville, Rogers, Bella Vista, they're all curious of what I got going on up there and how we're dealing with it. And how you can look at it is like, if we don't prepare for this growth, and if we continue along the path that we're moving along by not addressing these issues, we're going to be way behind the ball, which we are in a lot of sense when it comes to our infrastructure, you know, our path of travel from town, and, you know, there's a lot of things that we could be improving on. But you start off with the grant money. You take care of the sidewalks, you take care of the retaining walls. Now, I mean, the city may have a different approach to if they want to address that or take that on responsibility, but having no plan of action at all is the worst plan of action.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
denying possibilities, you know, without even opening up doors to see what we can be granted, because we are a charming historic district. And that was like my other, that's kind of what I brought up in the last meeting, is if it does reside on the property owners, then what do we do in situations where, let's say on Spring Street, there's, let's say, the sidewalk that has a grade difference of like 4 or 5 inches, right at the property line. What if the one property can afford to replace their sidewalk and then the next property over can't? And then we have a grade difference from the new coming in to the old, correct?
Yes.
So that's like another concern that we have when it comes to that.
And we couldn't allow that, right? So
Yes.
everything's got to be an even, walkable, flat, smooth, you know, not smooth, but walkable surface. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, because I know we're going to probably have the same conversation at the workshop, but I think one of the issues we're going to have is for the precedent that's already been set, and that's by allowing people to take out their sidewalks and not replace them. So when that's going to be an issue.
So, and I totally agree with you, because there should be a path of travel for safe pedestrian traffic. I have an issue with some of the CUPs that are granted for like a certain home that has one parking access for 5 residents that live on that live in that complex. So they don't have a sidewalk that they can access to get to the property. Or one side they do, but one side they don't, and then there's no crosswalk for them to cross when they have to get to that property. So what you're doing is creating a bigger issue with pedestrian safety. So I'm a huge advocate for, if they don't have a sidewalk, there should be something. There should be some safe path of travel, clearly marked and identified for everybody in the city, including ADA compliance. In my opinion. I mean, I'm just...
Today I got online and just kind of looked up some other information as far as sidewalks go and what other types of grants are out there. And I think too, you know, I mean, there are lots of different kinds, but there was even one, which was the AARP has a grant out there, and it was specifically for, it was like, it's called the Community Challenge Grant application, but it is for, it is to try to create more walkable cities. And AARP focuses on people that are over 50 years of age, which I think our average population here is around, last time I looked, it was like 53. But even those types of grants we might qualify for,
Yes, ma'am.
but a person or a homeowner wouldn't.
You're right. And it's...
So,
And when you leave it on the homeowner and you put it on the city to enforce it, our current enforcement on that is we allow them 180 days with an additional 90 days. And then the owner, I think it's a $25 fine or penalty or something like that. You have an issue, you're not addressing it, but I'm going to give you a year to deal with it. It seems, I think there needs to be some revision done to this if we keep it on the property owners. If the city comes in and we do the work ourselves, that means that we're contracting the work out, we're finding bidders, contractors put bids for it, and then we're monitoring it that way. But that type of enforcement would require a full-time, that's a full-time job. I mean,
Yeah.
you're doing soil reports. I mean, it's just not, you're not just going out there and repairing a chipped sidewalk. That's not the proper way to do it. You have to establish what type of soil. Why are you having this erosion problem? Where's the water coming in? Identifying the water source that's creating the erosion. Tackling it that way is the correct steps to do, not just repairing. Yes, sir.
In most of the problems on Spring Street, the trees bucking up the sidewalk because of the roots rather than erosion, or am I missing something?
No, I mean, it's both. There's water, intrusion that's creating the erosion. There's trees that are busting up sidewalks. There's a really healthy tree that I'm actually going to get Boza to come out and take a look at that needs to get removed because of the damage it's caused on the sidewalk. It's multiple challenges.
So when you said, the most heavily traveled area is Spring Street, of that area that you looked at, what percentage is privately owned and what percentage is city-owned?
And what I'm referring to is from right there in front of Benton Street, all the way up on that side. That's what I'm referring to when I say Spring Street. Spring Street has issues.
Okay.
But those issues it's even more of a difficult challenge to fix those sidewalks because you're talking about a 12 to 15 foot drop underneath those sidewalks. You have to reshore it, you have to reform it, pour it. The owners of the buildings that I've talked to on Spring Street are an advocate and would have no problem with either removing the limestone, creating a better surface, a more stable, less slippery walking surface. You have a steep grade with various tripping hazards on the way up, and then you have a slick limestone. I get it, it's a historic value to the town, but when you think of safety, you got to take it in all consideration.
So I can't remember on our workshop, was HDC invited?
Well, they should
think
be, because sidewalks fall under HCC.
Yeah, I think it is,
You
yes.
know?
It's a very important,
I
Yeah.
couldn't remember, because I
The
didn't
email
look at
came
all the
through.
names to see.
Yeah, it came through.
Well, you would have gotten it for planning though, too, so.
Yeah.
This is something I spoke with Glenna briefly about. For instance, the temporary handrail
Yeah, right.
that we installed right there at Basin Park, okay? The limestone steps that go down. The problem is with that is the sidewalk right there isn't adequate landing space for code to safely access that and safely come off of that. Because people just will automatically walk right down in the street because it's not much of a landing, So we in Parks Director and other individuals sat there and witnessed this multiple occasions. So I asked her, I said, we need to discuss possibly removing the limestones, replacing it with concrete, stamped however you like, make it nice, but that will allow a more sturdier handrail to be installed than the limestone. Limestone is difficult for it to grasp and hold on to.
Right.
But it also will widen that out and make it more accessible. But that's
city-owned, so that's, yeah, so it's both,
yes, ma'am. So
yeah.
So based off of the email, it looks like, sent from Kim, it looks like that the Historic District Commission members were not included in it. It looks like it just is City Council,
Okay.
City Council and Zoning and Planning.
Okay, and we may have requested originally just planning and city council, so
Yeah, we'll have to
I'll
get
see
Kim
if I
back.
can ask her if we can add.
And I did talk to Glenna briefly about it, so I would love to have all hands on deck
Yeah.
for this.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And Jacob, on those stairs at the park, one of the things, I walked that area a lot, and changing the direction of the stairs so they face the sidewalk instead of that's really a better solution.
Yes, sir.
And have that rail actually kind of come down and help that person get down, because the rail's there, and we could just, go around right there. But anyway, that's my suggestion.
No, and it's a great suggestion, for sure. I mean, it's just offering better accessibility to
Yeah.
get up there,
Yeah.
And Jacob, that's what I was mentioning too at the Historic District meeting when we were talking about sidewalks, is like, based off of, you have more expertise and you talk to contractors, if the slick limestone is not safe, that's priority. Like that, if the stamped limestone isn't going to be safe for residents to walk on, then it needs to be changed and just in collection, correct? Is that which?
When you look at it from a safety perspective, and
Yeah.
that's what we're doing here,
Yes.
it's an absolute safety issue. I know firsthand, believe me.
When you say stamped concrete, where are we talking about? Where do we have that example?
So it's right where King, oh wait, hold on. So Spring Street and Hillside meet right there.
Right.
Okay,
There's a section that was removed and replaced with concrete.
Yep.
To make it look like limestone. Contractor did a good job when you look at the photos from what it originally looked like to what it looks like now. It allows more of a rougher surface so you're not slipping and sliding all over that.
well, I
area.
know there was some out here in front of the auditorium that was
Yeah,
kind
it's-
of, was not smooth either.
Right. And look, limestone can have a rough finish to where it's not a slippery surface. Just the section where it says to polish it after it's repaired, that's the where I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often
absolutely.
wondered why some of the business owners, when it rains, it gets really slick. I've been down there with,
Oh,
if you don't have the right
absolutely,
shoes on,
Yeah.
why they didn't get some of those runner carpets and put it in front of their stores. It would freak me out because
Well,
it's so slick.
Yeah,
So I think
Post office.
I think it's a good thing to bring up in our workshop is revision of our current ordinance
Yeah.
of sidewalks.
Sure.
Well, and like I said too, it's not going to happen tomorrow. But, I don't think a 10-year plan is like out of the question,
No, I mean, it's going to take time, it's going to take logistics, it's going to take effort. But I think if we get a basis on the financial, portion of it, figuring out how we're going to take care of it,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work on the private owners, on the property owners to accomplish this.
Yeah, and I know today I did make a phone call also regarding some grants and things like that, so I'm waiting to see if I'll get a phone call back from the state. But I think, I know there are a lot of things out there that are at the top of the list, but I think to have whoever it is from planning be a representative, and the same is true of HDC, be representative to whoever is out there looking for grants for the city. What we talk about at this table, I know we're having a workshop on this, but what we talk about at this table may not translate to city council and therefore may not translate to the individual who is responsible for talking to the state individuals or the federal individuals on grants. It just may not be on their list. So, I really think that somebody from planning and I think somebody from HDC should be a part of that, I don't want to say team, but have a goal of what you're talking about for the year. Like we did our wish list at the beginning of the year. And if one of our discussions is sidewalks, or if one of our discussions is parking, or whatever it is, then that item should be on a general list or a total list that goes to the state or goes to the feds or it goes to whoever is responsible for looking for grants in case something shows up. Because, these applications are done well in advance before they're ever granted. Some of them are a year in advance. So even if we were to apply for some grants today, we might not see anything until 2025 or 2026. So, it's a process. But like I said, we haven't talked about sidewalks before. We have talked about some other things. But I'm not sure it translates to the overall list of here's what we're looking for.
I think, addressing life, health, safety is priority, especially in an
Yeah.
area where it's difficult to meet certain kind of safety and fire and building requirements to where if we just take those steps to focus on those main
Right.
priorities, I think it's going to, project us into maybe encouraging other properties and other business owners and, in other areas to kind of meet that kind of standard, elevating our standards. The gentleman I'm working with now is putting together and I'll have this by that time, it's a package, it's a remedial action plan. It's basically regarding how much money would be allocated for fixing the retaining walls, as well as money allocated to the sidewalks. And it's a template, basically, so we can utilize that template to apply for additional grants and keep that steadily going.
Yeah.
Because
But you're saying that the only way we can apply for grants is if the city takes the sidewalks back?
I did not say that, ma'am, but.
Oh, okay.
I did not say that, but what I said was,
But that's the reality.
look, yeah, I mean.
Highly likely.
I mean, that's going to have to be a big part of the discussion at the workshop.
Right.
Absolutely, and I know it's a big move, but when you think about, I mean,
I guess it's just a
we would be
missed
putting-
opportunity.
We
if-
would be putting a lot of liens on a lot of properties.
Yeah.
And is that the path that we want to take as a city? Or do we want to find additional resources to address,
Well, I mean, I don't think we need to keep going on because you're going to be repeating yourself at this workshop. But again, when you talk about these liens, that's what I meant. How can you put a lien on someone's property when you've allowed someone to take up their sidewalk and not put it back? The precedent has been set.
It's a very good question, ma'am.
Okay. I know you weren't here, but I mean, that's what has happened.
And that is true. There are properties, I mean, there are streets. I mean, we have them up where we are. One side has a sidewalk, the other side doesn't have a sidewalk.
Right.
So, what's the,
Yeah, my whole subdivision doesn't have any sidewalks.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's,
so,
Well, you're talking about the time frames too. That doesn't include if you go to court. That just throws everything out another 3, 6, 9 months. I
Right.
mean, besides, you know,
if you're lucky,
because a lot of times you got to go to court.
yeah.
so
Tom-
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, sidewalks shouldn't be removed, they should be repaired and maintained. Simple.
Tom, if I remember correctly, when it was several years ago that you had talked to some individuals about a certain sidewalk.
Yeah, there's a company down in Texas that had a process. They were the distributor for a process that started in Australia, where you dig up the sidewalks that are there and you shave the roots off, and then you pull the concrete back with basically a baffle board in between. So when the theory was when the roots do grow back over 5, 10, it would push the sidewalk up, and rather than just this way, it would kind of push it up even. And the gentleman that I talked to down in Texas at that time had a son going to school at Fayetteville. And he came up here and met with us, the mayor and I and Bobby Ray, and agreed to do a test plot up here. And some way
We didn't
it
take
got-
advantage of it.
it just got disappeared. But I think Dara Concrete makes a similar process that it's just like a 2x4, but instead of some kind of like plastic or fiberglass, and you insert them in certain sections of sidewalks.
Sir, that is a common building practice
Yeah.
in other municipalities, for sure,
Uh-huh.
and it's effective.
But yeah, there is a product that, Dara, which is an Arkansas company, they've been around for years doing concrete work. They do make a similar product that you can buy direct. And like Public Works, whoever, does the work, you go directly to Dara Concrete and get this similar product.
Yes, sir.
And,
Yeah, it contains the root systems, so it doesn't affect the trees or the streets, it doesn't affect the curb, doesn't affect the sidewalk, it just maintains it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We talked about the safety of the residents, but, we're a tourist town. I mean, a lot of the dollars in here are from tourists, and the tourists love walking up Spring Street, taking pictures of the houses, and they walk down the middle of the street. I mean, we look at it and say, well, it's going to cost a lot of money because it's what it is, but it's the basics of Eureka Springs is tourism.
Sir.
And it's, we want the residents to be safe, but, the economy that makes Eureka grow is the tourism.
Yes, sir.
And so, it may cost a lot of money, but tourism brings in a lot of money.
Right.
It's always interesting to watch tourists try to figure out how to navigate down the sidewalk too, looking at the best steps to take,
And something the homeowners probably don't know is if somebody falls on that sidewalk and breaks their leg, they're going to sue the homeowner. And I pull my insurance out, and I think I've got a $300,000 liability, but if, now if you break your leg or something, $300,000, I ain't going to touch it. I mean, you're up and, way above that. So I don't know how many people realize what the potential liability is if somebody falls on that sidewalk in front of their house the way it is now.
And I ran into that situation with a property owner, not to continue, I know we're going to go through a workshop, but I talked to a property owner on Spring Street that is under the impression that it's a city-owned sidewalk, that's not his responsibility to take care of it. So this workshop,
There's some clarification that needs to be.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to enforce. I just want to make everything clear
Yeah. And
revise this so it's very
Yeah.
easily to read, you know, and
I've been
go
told
from there.
probably 3 different variations, and it's like,
yeah.
you know, what,
For sure.
where are we at? Does anybody else have any questions for Jacob on this particular subject? Okay, let's move into the other item that was on there was long-term rentals. And I know we've got a copy of the short-term rental checklist.
So I'll kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. And so this is basically, have you guys ever heard of a neighborhood action committee? You guys know what that is or understand what that is? Yeah, Watch 2 is another one. Essentially, it's a committee that focuses on a section of the city, okay? And it handles sidewalk, retaining, property maintenance, all of it. Even inspections on on long-term rentals or short-term rentals, doesn't matter. What I was talking to Tom about is a certificate called the Certificate of Compliance. And it's an annual inspection that would be performed by the owner of the property, not the city. This is the responsibility of the owner. So it's putting more responsibility on the owner rather than the city or the tenant. It's a documentation that they would submit to the city in every year to verify a certain amount of compliance for code. And that's basically life, health, safety, egress. If those all major things are being taken care of, then we know that primarily that section of the neighborhood is safe and there's not a serious issue to be dealt with. These things can be submitted to the city clerk's office to keep track of, to where we know that if a renter leaves and it's a new leasee, we can kind of keep track of it that way on who's occupying the homes. And when they're occupied or when they're modified, and then we just maintain compliance in this. Little Rock does this, Fayetteville, there's other municipalities that do this type of thing, but I think that creating something to where we can put a little bit more back on the property owners to maintain mechanical, electrical, plumbing, safety, I think it's important because I speak to a lot of renters around town that have a lot of issues that aren't getting addressed, and I think we just need to, as a city, take control of that, I think.
Okay, so it's my understanding, and I'll just kind of jump to it.
Yes, ma'am.
The city doesn't have a list of long-term business owners, long-term rentals. So there is no list, correct?
No, ma'am. When a
Okay,
house is,
so-
there is, in a sense, when a house is renovated or altered, there has to be a certificate of occupancy
Yeah.
performed. That means
Do
that,
we,
hey,
so we have all of that,
on the renovations, yes, but it doesn't go back.
but it could be 20 years old.
If we create one now, start one, new database, we have new website, new servers, everything's going to be updated on our new website, so I think it's going to be easier to track that way.
But you
And-
still have to have people that come forward and say, hey, this is a long-term rental, not a residence.
And we can verify that information regarding, there's various ways to figure that information out on who's being honest and who's not being honest. But if we identify a property, address it, photograph it, and find out what's really going on with that property, we can ask them, and in some cases require them to perform a basic inspection. And when I mean an inspection, I'm talking minimum code requirements for life, health, safety, and egress.
Which
These
is
aren't-
this list.
This isn't asking them to
Yeah.
rebuild the structure to accommodate for wheelchair accessibility. I'm not getting that crazy. I'm just saying hey, is there insulation in the walls for wintertime? Do you guys have obstructions blocking your door in case of a fire? Do you have smoke detectors that are wired instead of battery operated? Basic things that they should have in a home just needs to be maintained, I think. And this is all just my opinion, but this is what I see out there every day. I run into these issues all the time where tenants are having these issues that don't want to address it to their landlords because they're scared of eviction. So they say, Jacob, will you bring it up? But I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get kicked out. Makes it difficult for me because, I just have to be the voice for them. But I can tell you this, I mean, it's evident. You look at the property maintenance around town, I mean, it's clearly there's some things that need to be addressed. And I think it's, you know, I mean, maybe the property owners are just waiting for that enforcement to happen to do something. I don't know. You know, I find it hard to believe that it's money, because if you just tackle a small section at a time, next thing you know, you have a, you know, livable, safe, aesthetically appealing home.
So, so the last time, or when we originally brought this up, and not so much about short-term, but long-term rentals, we brought it up at this table, city council took it and ran. And there were discussions over there as to that particular, it's been probably, what, 6 months? At least 6 months, I would say. So where are you at in this process? So I guess I mean, I know you've got information on short-term rentals as far as doing inspections, because you know who they are, because there's a license and whatnot of the majority of them. Where are you at on who's creating that process? Are you waiting for the new website to get up and running so you've got some additional, you have additional information that you can create a database? Or are you needing the city to pass an ordinance? Or, I mean, where are you at with it?
Yes, ma'am, 100%. So what I'm doing when I have time to do it is verifying through other municipalities on how they enforce it, how they create ordinances to establish these types of laws. You've got to have it before you do anything, for obvious reasons. But you also, it takes time too, because you got to figure out, everything is according to the area you live in. So something might work differently for an area like Fayetteville. Some might work differently for an area like San Diego.
Right.
You know, obviously it's going to be different for Eureka Springs, you know. And when you consider the demographics, the age groups and the accessibility and all of that, there's a lot that goes into that. So where I'm at with it is, I think I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good ordinance that I would like for us to review, and the mayor as well as everybody.
Okay, so are you wanting it to come to planning and then go to city council, or are you going to immediately take it to city council?
I'd like everybody to review it and get everybody's opinion on it. I think everybody should have an opinion on the matter because it's going to affect everybody.
Okay, so you've got something kind of put together, so basically you need to schedule a workshop.
You actually need, I guess, what, HDC?
Yeah, I would think.
Well, so I want to just wait to find out one key thing. If the gentleman who's helping me with the grants, if that's allocated, we can get that process rolling. If we get the thumbs up on one that he's thinking that we will, I think that's going to help steamroll a lot of this. Because if we can start tackling the sidewalk.
You mean on the sidewalk issue?
Yeah, but I mean, it all goes back to property maintenance, right?
Right, yeah.
And really it does. It all falls into. So, I mean, we go into make sure, hey, your rental property has basic means of electricity and water, and your sanitation is taken care of, you know, and then your sidewalks are in compliance. Your vegetation is in compliance. Your tree overgrowth that's, you know, falling down on your home is no longer an issue. Various things that need to be addressed. And I think all of that can be involved in one.
Okay.
So I have a pretty good document that I'd like to just let Forrest review for sure. But
So we're not doing anything here. You're going to continue to work on that. We're going to do our workshop on sidewalks.
So
We
I've-
already have that scheduled.
yes, ma'am. And I forwarded Tom an email regarding long-term housing inspections and compliance with certificates and fees that are established with that, owner's responsibility, and systematic inspections, and it goes over additional inspections, and it goes over inspection procedures. And he can forward that to all of you, so you guys can take a look at it and review it and tell me what you think. It has really good information in it. And then we can kind of just go from there, I guess.
Okay. Does anybody have any extra questions on any of that?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
one
you,
comment I want to make was Jacob, you know, I've said this before, but you're doing a bang-up job. Thank you.
Okay, Ann, you're up. your item.
So I gave everybody a copy of ordinance
Thank you,
2330.
guys.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jacob.
Jacob. 2332 and 2309. So, for those of you that are new, when we started on this was the Spring Street parking ordinance was done because the people on, I don't even know my direction when I go up there, that backed up to King Street, that had grandfather parking, were not using it. So we did an ordinance, we put up residential parking signs, we started giving out permits, and I've actually known about this for a long time. I thought Kyle was going to come back. The permits that were given to Bridgeford House need to be taken back. They're invalid permits. They don't get parking passes, they don't get a residential pass. They either use the parking that's down there behind the house, or they can go down to the end of the street and they can park. So, however, you want to take those back. Tom?
Question. I was looking at the legal non-conforming Appendix A in our handbook. Does that thing still apply here? That property where it says you have to have 263 Spring has 5 units and 3 parking spaces. I mean, was this invalidated by the Spring Street ordinance, or is this still in effect?
Well, that's actually another issue, because that really doesn't have anything to do with the fact that the permits were issued. I am going to put Bridgeford House on the next agenda to talk about that. But right now, we have to talk about how we're going to pull these parking permits, because they're not valid.
Doesn't somebody have to live?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Their son lives in it. Should
He
be able to
lives
get
there,
it.
but per
He-
policy, or per code ordinance, they have to provide 2 parking spaces for the owner-manager. And they have 3 parking spaces.
Yeah.
So they have to use their own parking
So
spaces.
I used to own the building beside them, Chantilly Place Inn, before it was a rental.
Uh-huh.
And when we bought it from the bank, we were told we had to have guest parking, but we were not a B&B. We were an overnight lodging, so
Right.
that's different right there. Wooden Bridgeford House, I don't know with a B&B, are they required to have parking for the number of rooms that they have as well?
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what the topic is. The topic is they were issued passes that are not valid.
So what we're saying is because they're a B&B,
It says right here, if you go to your second page,
this is it on the first page too.
or is it the first page?
Bridgeford means illegal residential,
Yes, resident means illegal,
which excludes business address.
which excludes business addresses such as a bed and breakfast, tourist lodging, tour homes, and other home-based businesses. Occupants and guests of businesses are to park off-street in designated parking areas, not in residential areas. I talked to the mayor. One of the problems we've had in the striping at the end of the street is we don't have anyone to stripe right now. They know they're not eligible for parking. How did they get it?
I don't know. The only thing I've heard indirectly was that one of the aldermen assisted them getting that's all I've heard. I don't know who that.
Well,
don't
Kyle,
have
I
any evidence.
confronted Kyle about this, and he sent me the email thread, and I guess this was between you and Forrest and Kyle.
I don't think I was included on an email thread. I was asked my opinion, and I gave my opinion on what I thought they should have and what they shouldn't have,
Well-
based on our book and how many spots were allowed, or how many spots were given.
So the issue is, how do we take the parking permits back?
Okay. So I was asked my opinion as far as, and this goes back to what Linda was talking about, one person not being able to decide for the commission. And I was asked my opinion on what I thought should happen in this case. Based on the book that's here, the information that I had originally, it says that they have 3 parking spaces. I know that the property purchased, when they purchased it, their assumption was that they would be able to park on Spring Street, just like, anybody else, because it was a city street. my concern, when I was asked my opinion, was whether or not, because the city was changing its rules, where would these people park? So they do have somebody that lives there. They should qualify, in my opinion, for a residential sticker because they don't have enough parking places on their property. So that's the basis for my opinion that was given because I was asked of it. I mean, the opinion could have been asked of, any one of you.
Okay, so you gave your opinion and now it's been done,
Right.
so now how do we get them out? How do we take them back?
Well,
What's your opinion
I mean,
on that?
it's an administration issue.
Right.
So administration is the one that issued the actual permits.
Right.
So, I mean, we don't issue permits here.
No, it's-
So, I mean, if somebody gives an opinion, it still is up to an employee
Right.
Okay,
or-
and I'll get with the mayor tomorrow
or the city
and we'll
to,
get these taken care of.
I mean, I don't
we'll get-
know what else
We'll just
Yeah,
go,
that's
we
all.
can just
Yeah.
continue, I'll just get with the
I
mayor
don't know what
tomorrow.
else to do. I mean, it's still an administration issue. I mean, I guess they have the opportunity to issue or not issue, to waive or not waive. So, I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
because we're not issuing permits
No,
here.
Well, it says the police
We can
department
move
does
on.
it.
Well,
And-
in the police department, so what I was told today was that the police department, originally, I think it was set up so that the police department would issue the permits and
Right.
do all the paperwork and everything.
Yeah. And-
Well, apparently
yeah.
now that's changed because I was told that the police department can't issue and
Right, right, enforce.
issue a ticket.
And enforce,
And
right,
enforce,
right.
right. So
So,
now it's
yeah.
gone back to City Hall,
Yeah,
whoever that person is, or persons, that they are taking the applications and then they're presenting them to the police department. So,
I'll get clarification
so
on
there
that,
is
too.
some,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so,
No, yeah, and I did I sent a complaint to the mayor about not being enforced, and I have not heard back, so,
I mean, the ordinance, if you're talking about the ordinance, I mean, being
Right.
the law, the ordinance is very clear.
yeah,
The police department shall administer all aspects of the district parking.
well,
It shall set forth procedures for the issuance, renewal, and allowance of parking permits.
yeah, well, like I said, apparently some of
I
that's
mean, I don't know how you
changed, so.
can
Yeah.
delegate it back to City Hall when it says. the
right,
police
it's,
department
it's
without
the
changing the
executive over
ordinance.
there, yeah.
Okay.
So,
That's it,
okay,
yeah.
anybody else have any other
No.
comments on that?
That's it. That's it.
Okay, so, let's see, so we took all of the other items off
Oh, yeah, you got,
our list, so really the only thing left we have is agenda setting. So, does anyone, I know we've got a workshop coming up on the 30th of November at 4 o'clock for sidewalks. I'm going to see if I can send an email to Kim about HDC to invite all of them to the meeting as well. And then we'll see about 302 Village Circle.
I want to put the Bridgeford House parking on the next agenda.
Okay.
So is that all, so is the decision to discuss it or revoke the parking permits, is that not on us? That is going to be on city council or administration? Is that
right.
correct?
yeah, because it's based on an enforceable ordinance, so we can't.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if that needs to be changed for us, it's going to need to change that.
Yeah, I was just curious how,
Yeah.
where we deal with it. Okay.
Yeah.
What's their address? Is it 263?
It's,
Spring?
263 Spring.
Yep.
263. Okay, so we've got, right now, possibly 302 Village Circle, and then we have 263 Spring Street. Anybody else want to add anything? I think we're kind of just on hold right now. Hopefully, we'll have Kyle back.
Yeah.
If you talk to Glenn about Pine Mountain, There was nothing in last month's packet, even though they were on the agenda.
Yeah, it
And
sounds
what
like,
was on this agenda
we've
was
got-
not very complete.
yeah, no, it sounds like we've got different people involved with paperwork here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
a little crazy.
Well, I'd hate for him to show up and not have the packet complete, I guess is what I'm trying to
well,
say.
we hadn't had to worry about that yet, have we?
Well, but
I know,
keeps showing up
I
on the
know.
agenda.
So, all right, so next month is December.
Yeah.
Can we also do either a compilation of what we didn't get finished this year?
End of year report, how about that?
And possibly start working on your checklist. I did want to ask you, Ann, real quick. I know you were doing, going over the audits for properties. And I know there was some
We have some.
misunderstandings as far as letters and.
Oh, I think all
and-
that's been cleared up, but what we have learned is we need to modify some of our codes. And I've got a list, and I will bring, I'm not going to do it before January, but in January, I'll bring them to the table. They're not major changes, but they're additions that need to be added. A lot of our things deal strictly with non-conforming, when they should deal not only with non-conforming, but they should deal with CUPs also. So, yeah, I'll bring those in January.
Okay, and then I would like to add one thing to our meeting coming up. So because we did have some issues with some letters that went out to properties regarding show cause hearings, I would like for us to discuss and vote on exactly what we would like those letters to say. So we've kind of gone through a, I don't want to say maybe a learning process, but we've had some wording that was offensive to some people and it scared them to death. We've also had letters that have gone out that didn't say why they were having to come before us for show
I
cause.
don't know that we can control that.
Well, I would like for us to at least say that these are the things that, at a minimum, because they're coming here to planning. I mean, they're going to be in front of us. So I think that we need to make sure that those letters
We
are,
can request that information.
that's what I'd
is
like to do.
included
Yes,
in the
that I
letters,
would like for
yes.
us to discuss it and say, what do you think is a fair letter to go out to someone when there is a show cause? Does it need to state the ordinance? Probably needs to state the ordinance. Does it need to say why they're being called in? I think it does. And then we can just kind of go from there. And then those can be some suggestions that we give to whoever that individual is that will be sending those letters out. Because I think there was just too much grief and strife created on some of the letters that went out. And we had some circumstances that weren't under our control either.
Well, I think
so.
one of the things that has to change too is when people apply for CUPs or some of these things that they do, we need to change our process in that when they send letters to the neighborhood, they're very forthcoming on what the intent is to do.
Yeah, so maybe there's just some more things that need to
Yeah,
be
there are some things
to
that
be
need
cleared
to be
cleared up. And I know the bed and breakfast thing, because we've got that moratorium in place, and I know cleaning up some of that code is going to be important. And if we can get it started in January, that'd be good, because we only have until June, and it'll take a while to get it over to city council. So, okay, that is it. Commissioner comments. Ann?
None.
Susan?
None.
Peter?
Nope.
Tom?
They did have part of a trial today on the CUP on the gun pawn shop deal in Bearville today. And the trial started at 10:30 and it went to about 2:30. And they went through all the process of the CUP, what we did and what city council did. And at the end, the judge said, well, it looks like we may need to have a jury trial at some point in the future. So there'll be another trial, I think, in the future about the pawn shop and the gun deal. But it was kind of a lengthy process.
You're talking about the one on 62, not in Berryville, right?
Right.
Okay, 62. The Eureka.
It's the one
So
up there on
how did it end?
Well, they were asking for some kind of emergency hearing, and they really couldn't at the end tell the judge why they need an emergency hearing. So the judge said, well, it sounds like it's something I can't root from the bench on, so let's just, unless it really is an emergency, let's just go ahead buying a date for a jury trial. And, but it went on forever.
It's going to go on forever.
Wow.
So that'll be 5 years down the road, probably.
Okay.
Fergie?
The only thing I want to comment, the Christmas lights are out. I hope everybody gets to go see those. I salute to the Public Works for getting those up so efficiently, and they're new, the new lights, new, I don't know if you've seen them on the street, but much more efficient, power-wise, as well as also they're a lot lighter. So they won't come smashing through a car's windshield if they fell. So it's really good. They did a great job. So kudos to Public Works, and also kudos, like I said earlier, to Jacob and all the work he's doing. So, I guess, I don't know, happy Thanksgiving.
Can I get a
Motion
motion?
to adjourn.
Second?
All right, motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.